December 1943, a Wehrmacht testing facility outside Stuttgart. 3 German automotive engineers stand in a cold hangar, staring at a vehicle that makes no sense. It is a Willys MB, what the Americans call a Jeep, captured 2 weeks earlier in Italy when its driver took a wrong turn and drove straight into a German checkpoint. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you're watching from today. The engineers have spent 6 days dismantling it, measuring every component, analyzing every weld, testing every system. Their conclusion, written in a report that will reach Albert Speer's desk within a month, is as precise as it is disturbing. This vehicle should not exist, not because of its design, which is conventional, but because of what its construction reveals about American industrial capacity. The lead engineer, Dr. Friedrich Müller, a veteran of Daimler-Benz who helped develop military trucks for the Wehrmacht, circles the disassembled Jeep one more time. He picks up the engine block, cast iron, single piece. No visible flaws in the casting. He examines the cylinder walls with a jeweler's loop. The tolerances are tight, tighter than German military specifications require. This is not prototype quality. This is production quality. That is what troubles him. The Americans are building throwaway vehicles to standards that exceed German precision engineering for critical components. His colleague, Herr Bachmann, holds up the Jeep's transmission. He has counted 83 separate parts, not including fasteners. In German production, such a transmission would require skilled machinists, careful assembly, quality control at every stage. Time-consuming, expensive, limited production capacity. He turns to Müller. How many of these do you think they have made? Müller does not answer immediately. He walks to a table covered with notes, calculations, intelligence reports. The Americans call this vehicle a quarter-ton truck. Military designation, truck, 1 quarter-ton, 4x4. Intelligence indicates they began production in mid-1941. That is 28 months ago. Müller picks up a document. It is a translation of an American newspaper article smuggled through neutral Sweden. The article, from the Toledo Blade, mentions Willys Overland's Jeep production. It is written for a domestic audience, assumes readers understand the context, but to German eyes, certain details are shocking. And the newspaper mentions that Willys Overland's Toledo plant is now operating 3 shifts, 24 hours per day. It mentions that Ford Motor Company has also begun building Jeeps under license at its Rouge River plant in Dearborn, Michigan. 2 factories, round-the-clock production. For 28 months. Müller does the mathematics. Conservative estimate, 100 vehicles per factory per day. That is 200 per day. 7 days a week. That is 56,000 vehicles in just 1 year. But they have been producing for more than 2 years. He looks at Bachmann. If these numbers are accurate, and this is only 2 factories, the Americans may have produced over 100,000 of these vehicles already. Bachmann laughs, not from humor, but from disbelief. Friedrich, that is impossible. Germany's entire automotive industry, every factory from Volkswagen to Mercedes, produces perhaps 80,000 military vehicles per year. And that is cars, trucks, half-tracks, everything combined. You are suggesting the Americans build more of just this one vehicle type than we build of everything. Müller does not laugh. He has spent 6 days with this Jeep. He has seen the evidence. The Americans are not building these vehicles the German way. They have created something else entirely, a manufacturing system that operates on principles German industry has not yet grasped. The next morning, Müller begins writing his report. He is an engineer, not a propagandist. His job is to assess enemy capabilities accurately, not to make his superiors comfortable. The report runs to 42 pages, single-spaced, with detailed technical drawings and photographs. The introduction is blunt. The American quarter-ton truck represents a revolution in military vehicle production. Its significance lies not in superior engineering, which it does not possess, but in manufacturing methodology that enables mass production at scales previously considered impossible. Section 1 of the report details the vehicle itself. Wheelbase, 80 inches. Weight, 2,100 pounds. Engine, 134 cubic inches, 60 horsepower. Four-wheel drive, four-speed transmission. Top speed, 65 miles per hour. Range, approximately 300 miles. Nothing exceptional. German reconnaissance vehicles match or exceed these specifications, but Section 2 changes the tone. Manufacturing analysis. Here, Müller documents what troubles him. The Jeep's body is made from stamped steel panels, not hand-formed as German vehicles are. The panels are identical, interchangeable. This means automated stamping presses, hundreds of thousands of identical parts. The frame is welded, not bolted. Faster assembly, but requires confidence in weld quality. The welds on the captured vehicle are consistent, uniform, clearly made by semi-skilled workers using jigs and fixtures, not by craftsmen. The engine block shows no tool marks from manual finishing. It came out of the casting mold, ready for assembly. This requires precision casting techniques and quality control systems that eliminate the need for hand finishing. Every bolt is standardized. Müller and his team found only 7 different sizes of fasteners in the entire vehicle. German military vehicles typically use dozens of different sizes, requiring different tools, different suppliers, different inventory systems. The Americans have standardized everything. Section 3 examines what this means. If, Müller writes, the manufacturing techniques evident in this vehicle are typical of American production, then their capacity exceeds our initial estimates by at least an order of magnitude. The vehicle before us is not a carefully crafted machine. It is a product of industrial mass production applied to military equipment with ruthless efficiency. Consider the implications. The body panels are stamped. This requires massive presses, dies that cost thousands of Reichsmarks to produce. But once the tooling exists, a single press operator can stamp hundreds of panels per day. We employ craftsmen who hand-form each panel individually. The Americans employ press operators who feed sheet metal into machines. Our method produces superior individual vehicles. Their method produces vastly more vehicles. The engine is designed for ease of assembly, not peak performance. It has only 4 cylinders, a flathead design that sacrifices power for simplicity. But simplicity means faster assembly, fewer things to go wrong, easier maintenance in the field. They have chosen adequate performance and mass production over optimal performance and limited numbers. Even the paint is revealing, single color, applied quickly, no attention to finish quality. The vehicle we examined has paint runs, uneven coverage, overspray on rubber components. In a German factory, this would be rejected. The Americans apparently accepted it. Why? Because perfect paint does not affect battlefield performance, and time spent perfecting paint is time not spent building more vehicles. Section 4 is titled Production Estimates and Strategic Implications. Here, Müller's careful engineer's prose takes on an edge of urgency, based on analysis of manufacturing techniques, publicly available information, and intelligence reports. I estimate American production of this vehicle type alone exceeds 100,000 units as of December 1943. This estimate may be conservative. If American automotive factories have been converted to military production using the mass manufacturing techniques evident in this vehicle, their total military vehicle output could exceed 500,000 units per year. For comparison, German production across all vehicle types in 1942 reached approximately 80,000 units. We are being outbuilt by a factor of 6 to 1, possibly higher. The report lands on various desks in Berlin in January 1944. Reactions vary. Some officials dismiss it as defeatist. Others argue Müller has been deceived by American propaganda, that production numbers are inflated. A few understand what he is really saying. The Americans are not trying to build better vehicles. They are building adequate vehicles in overwhelming numbers. And they are succeeding. Oberst Heinrich Bauer, an officer in the Heereswaffenamt, the Army Weapons Agency, reads Müller's report and writes a response. He does not dispute the technical analysis. Instead, he questions whether numbers alone matter. Our Panthers and Tigers are superior to any American tank. He writes, Our 88mm gun is superior to any Allied anti-tank weapon. We have quality. They have quantity. History will judge which matters more. But Bauer misses Müller's point. The Jeep is not a combat vehicle. It is a logistics vehicle. It carries supplies, tows trailers, moves officers, evacuates wounded. It keeps armies moving, and if the Americans have 100,000 Jeeps, that means they can move supplies at a scale German logistics officers have never imagined. They can maintain supply lines across distances that would break German systems. They can keep divisions fed, fueled, and armed, regardless of how far from railheads they advance. February 1944. The report reaches Albert Speer, Reich Minister of Armaments and War Production. Speer is a realist, an architect and organizer who understands industrial capacity. He reads Müller's report in one sitting, then summons his chief production planners. "Can we match this?" he asks. The answer takes 3 days to prepare. It is not encouraging. Germany's automotive industry operates on craft production principles inherited from the pre-war era. Skilled workers hand-assemble vehicles. Quality is high, but speed is limited. Converting to mass production would require retooling every factory, training thousands of workers in new techniques, standardizing components across different manufacturers. Time required, at least 2 years. Cost, billions of Reichsmarks. And during the conversion, production would drop to near zero. Even if we could convert, one planner admits, we lack the raw materials. American mass production consumes steel, rubber, copper, aluminum in quantities we simply do not have. They have access to resources from across 2 continents. We are running out of everything. Speer writes in his diary that night, a diary that will survive the war. We are being defeated not by superior German tactics or courage, but by American industrial capacity. They have built a war machine that operates on principles of mass production we abandoned in favor of quality and craftsmanship. I fear we made the wrong choice, but the report about the Jeep is only the beginning. As 1944 progresses and Allied forces push deeper into Europe, German officers encounter American logistics firsthand. What they see confirms Müller's worst projections and reveals something even more disturbing. The Americans have not just built a lot of Jeeps, they have built entire armies around the assumption of overwhelming material abundance. April 1944. Normandy. Oberstleutnant Hans Voss commands a panzer regiment, preparing for the invasion everyone knows is coming. He has been a tank officer since Poland, fought in France, in Russia, survived 3 years of brutal warfare. He considers himself experienced, realistic about German chances. Then intelligence brings him a captured American document. It is a table of organization and equipment for a U.S. infantry division. Voss studies it in his command post, and the numbers make no sense. An American infantry division, according to this document, is authorized 14,421 men. That is comparable to a German division. But the equipment list is staggering. The Americans assign each division 209 Jeeps, approximately 500 trucks of various sizes, dozens of half-tracks, self-propelled artillery, even light aircraft for observation. A German infantry division has perhaps 50 trucks, if fully equipped, which most are not. The Americans have 4 times as many trucks, just for a single division. Voss does the mathematics. If each truck can carry 2 tons, and each Jeep can tow a trailer carrying another ton, an American division can move approximately 1,200 tons of supplies with its organic transport. A German division can move perhaps 200 tons. The Americans can sustain operations 6 times longer without resupply, or they can operate 6 times farther from railheads, or they can support 6 times more intensive combat. He shows the document to his logistics officer, Hauptmann Dietrich. Is this accurate? Dietrich, who has spent the war fighting shortages, nods slowly. Intelligence believes so. We have captured similar documents from other American units. The organization appears standard. Then, they are not building an army, Voss says. They are building a machine. Each division is self-contained, self-mobile, self-sustaining. They do not need external logistics the way we do. They carry their logistics with them. Exactly, Dietrich replies. And if this is one division, and intelligence estimates they plan to field 50 or more divisions in Europe alone. Voss does not finish the calculation. He does not need to. 50 divisions, each with 200 jeeps and 500 trucks. That is 10,000 jeeps and 25,000 trucks, just for infantry divisions, not counting armored divisions, which must have even more vehicles, not counting corps and army-level transport, not counting the vehicles needed for supply depots, hospitals, maintenance units. The Americans are not building an army, they are building a motorized nation, and they are bringing that nation to Europe. May 1944. In Stuttgart, Dr. Müller has been assigned a new task. The Heereswaffenamt wants more information. His report on the Jeep raised questions no one can answer. How many vehicles have the Americans built? What types? How do their factories operate? Müller is given access to all available intelligence, reconnaissance photos, captured documents, interrogation reports from prisoners of war, intercepts of American radio communications, newspaper articles from neutral countries, even commercial advertisements that somehow made it through censorship. He assembles a team of 4 engineers and 6 translators. They work for 6 weeks, and what they compile becomes known within German military intelligence as the Müller estimate. It is the first comprehensive attempt to calculate American military vehicle production. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. Müller's estimate, based on factory counts, shift patterns, and analysis of serial numbers from captured vehicles. The Americans have produced, as of May 1944, approximately 600,000 Jeeps, approximately 700,000 trucks of various sizes, from 1.5-ton cargo trucks to 10-ton prime movers, approximately 40,000 tanks and tank destroyers, total military vehicles of all types, approximately 1.8 million, in less than 3 years of war production. By comparison, Germany has produced, from 1939 to 1944, approximately 300,000 military vehicles total, including tanks, trucks, cars, motorcycles. The Americans have produced 6 times more vehicles in half the time. But Müller's report goes deeper. He has analyzed how this is possible. Section 5 of his new report is titled The American System. Here, he explains what he has learned. American automotive factories, before the war, produced approximately 4 million civilian cars per year. When war came, these factories did not shut down and retool from scratch. They converted. Assembly lines that built Chevrolets now build trucks. Assembly lines that built Fords now build Jeeps. Workers who assembled civilian cars now assemble military vehicles. The skills transfer. The methods transfer. The scale transfers. Germany never had this base. Our automotive industry before the war produced perhaps 300,000 vehicles per year. Total civilian and military. We had craftsmen, not assembly line workers. We had quality, not quantity. When war came, we tried to increase production, but we were starting from a much lower base, and we were trying to increase using methods that do not scale. The Americans have something else, a concept they call interchangeability. Parts are machined to such tight tolerances that any part fits any vehicle. They do not hand-fit components the way we do. A carburetor from one Jeep works in any other Jeep. A transmission gear from one truck fits any other truck of the same model. This seems like a small thing. It is revolutionary. It means they can build components in one factory and ship them to a dozen assembly plants. It means they can repair vehicles in the field by swapping standardized parts, not by having craftsmen fabricate custom replacements. It means their supply chain is simpler, faster, more flexible. They have industrialized war itself. The report includes a section that will be quoted in German staff discussions for the rest of the war. We are fighting the wrong kind of war. We designed our military around the concept of quality. Superior tanks, superior guns, superior tactics, superior soldiers. The Americans designed their military around the concept of quantity. Adequate tanks, adequate guns, adequate tactics, adequate soldiers, but overwhelming numbers of everything. In a short war, quality wins. In a long war, quantity wins. This is now a long war. We are losing. June 6th, 1944. the invasion begins. In the first 24 hours, Allied forces land approximately 156,000 men in Normandy. German defenders fight hard, inflict casualties, slow the advance, but within hours, Allied logistics begins flowing across the beaches. German observers cannot believe what they see. The Americans do not just bring soldiers, they bring vehicles in numbers that seem impossible. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. By the end of D-Day, approximately 6,000 vehicles have been landed. By the end of the first week, 50,000 vehicles. By the end of the first month, approximately 150,000 vehicles. More vehicles in 1 month than Germany's entire motor vehicle fleet in France. Wehrmacht intelligence reports track this build-up with growing alarm. June 15th. Estimated Allied vehicle count in Normandy lodgement, 70,000. June 22nd, 90,000. June 30th, 140,000. Each report notes that these numbers include only vehicles spotted by reconnaissance or captured in documents. Actual numbers are likely higher. General Major Wilhelm Richter, commanding a defensive sector, writes in his diary, "We destroy their tanks, and more appear the next day. We ambush their supply convoys, and more convoys follow within hours. It is like fighting a machine that repairs itself faster than we can damage it." He is describing what German strategic thinking has not grasped. The Americans are not trying to preserve their vehicles. They expect losses. They plan for losses. They build excess capacity specifically to absorb losses and keep advancing. July 1944. A Tiger tank, one of Germany's most formidable weapons, sits disabled in a French field near Caen. Its transmission has failed, not from combat damage, but from mechanical breakdown. Tigers are complex, powerful, deadly. They are also fragile. Transmission failures are common. Normally, the crew would wait for a recovery vehicle to tow the tank to a repair depot, where skilled mechanics would install a replacement transmission fabricated to fit this specific vehicle. This process takes days, sometimes weeks. Across the field, 300 meters away, an American Sherman tank sits with its crew eating lunch. The Sherman was knocked out the previous day by an 88mm anti-tank gun. One round penetrated the turret, killed 2 crewmen, disabled the main gun. But American recovery crews arrived within hours. They towed the Sherman back to a field maintenance depot, just 2 kilometers behind the front lines. Mechanics worked through the night. They did not repair the turret. They replaced it. A completely new turret, lifted by crane onto the hull. The replacement turret came from a damaged Sherman, whose hull was destroyed but turret intact. Standard parts, interchangeable components. The Sherman was back in action within 18 hours. The crew, minus the 2 killed, received 2 replacement crewmen from a casualty replacement depot. They were eating lunch before returning to combat. The Tiger, superior in armor, superior in firepower, superior in almost every combat metric, sits immobile. The Sherman, inferior in nearly every way, is about to return to the fight. This pattern repeats across Normandy, across France, across every battlefield where American forces meet German. The Germans win tactical victories. They destroy more Allied tanks than they lose. Their kill ratios are often impressive, but they are ground down by volume, by the sheer mass of material the Allies can bring forward and keep bringing forward regardless of losses. A captured German officer, interrogated in July 1944, is asked about American equipment. His answer is recorded in the interrogation report. "Your vehicles are inferior to ours individually. Your Jeep is not as robust as our Kubelwagen. Your trucks are not as well built as ours. Your Sherman is not as powerful as our Panther. But you have so many. You replace them so quickly. You waste them without concern, because more are always coming. How do we fight that? We can win every battle and still lose the war, because you simply bring more vehicles, more supplies, more everything. It is not warfare, it is industrial mathematics. August 1944, the breakout from Normandy. American armored columns race across France at speeds that shock German commanders. Patton's Third Army advances 200 kilometers in 2 weeks. German staff officers study maps and cannot understand how the Americans maintain this pace. Armies need fuel, ammunition, food, supply lines stretch, logistics break down. This is the nature of warfare. Except the Americans seem immune to these limitations. A captured set of American logistics documents explains why. The documents outline supply procedures for a single American armored division on the advance. Each division is authorized approximately 400 vehicles just for combat elements, tanks, tank destroyers, armored cars, half-tracks, but the logistics tail is even larger. 600 trucks for division supply, 200 jeeps for command and liaison, 100 ambulances, dozens of specialized vehicles, wreckers, maintenance carriers, fuel tankers, water trucks, total vehicles per armored division, approximately 1,300. An American armored corps with 3 divisions has nearly 4,000 vehicles. An American army with multiple corps has tens of thousands. And behind the combat forces, the supply network, the Red Ball Express, a dedicated truck route from Normandy ports to forward depots, runs 24 hours per day. Approximately 6,000 trucks in constant circulation. Each truck makes the round trip every 2 days, carrying 5 tons of supplies forward, returning empty for another load. Daily throughput, 15,000 tons, enough to keep 3 armies advancing simultaneously. A German logistics officer, shown these documents after capture, does the mathematics and shakes his head. We could not do this, even if we had the trucks. Our road network cannot handle this volume of traffic. Our fuel stocks cannot support it. Our maintenance facilities cannot service this many vehicles. The Americans have built a system where everything scales together. More vehicles, more fuel production, more maintenance capacity, more replacement parts, more of everything. September 1944, Brussels. The city has just been liberated. German forces are in full retreat toward the Rhine. General Lieutenant Hans Speidel, former Chief of Staff to Field Marshal Rommel, sits in a commandeered apartment writing his assessment of the campaign. He has been a professional soldier for 25 years, served in 2 wars, studied military history extensively. What he has witnessed in France violates every principle of warfare he learned. The Americans have created a form of warfare we have no doctrine to counter, he writes. Traditional military thinking holds that armies must balance firepower, mobility, and protection. The Americans have simply chosen maximum mobility through overwhelming logistics and have accepted whatever casualties result from adequate rather than optimal firepower and protection. They can do this because they have vehicles in such numbers that mobility becomes its own form of protection. They do not fight for positions. They bypass resistance and maintain momentum. When they lose vehicles, and they lose many, they replace them from stocks we cannot imagine. Speidel includes an observation that cuts to the heart of the matter. I have reviewed intelligence estimates of American vehicle production. If these estimates are even remotely accurate, the Americans produce more military vehicles in 1 month than our entire armed forces possess in total. This is not a war we can win through tactical skill or operational brilliance. This is a war of industrial capacity, and we lost that war before it began. October 1944. The Hürtgen Forest. Brutal infantry, fighting in dense terrain where American mobility advantages mean little. German defenders fight skillfully, exact heavy casualties, slow the American advance to a crawl. It is the kind of battle German doctrine anticipates, where training and tactical skill matter more than numbers. But even here, American logistics makes a difference. American infantry divisions attacking in the Hürtgen are supplied continuously, despite terrible roads and constant shelling. Ammunition is abundant. Food is hot. Medical evacuation is rapid. Casualties are replaced within days. The divisions maintain combat effectiveness through sheer volume of support. German divisions defending the forest are slowly ground down. Ammunition becomes scarce. Food is cold field rations. Medical evacuation takes hours or days. Casualties cannot be replaced. The divisions weaken with each day of combat. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. An Oberst, commanding a regiment in the forest, writes to his division commander, "We are fighting well, but we are fighting with World War I supply levels against an enemy with unlimited material. My men fire 10 rounds per day per gun. The Americans fire 10 rounds per gun per minute. My wounded wait hours for evacuation. Theirs are in hospitals within 90 minutes. We eat stale bread and cold soup. They eat hot meals delivered to the front line. This is not a fair fight." His division commander's response is brief. "There are no fair fights in war, only wins and losses. Do your best with what you have." But doing their best with what they have is no longer enough. November 1944. Dr. Friedrich Müller, the engineer who first examined a captured Jeep in December 1943, receives new intelligence. American production figures for the year to date. He sits in his office in Stuttgart, now partially destroyed by Allied bombing, and reads the numbers. Jeeps produced in 1944 alone, approximately 360,000. Total production since 1941, approximately 640,000. His original estimate of 600,000 total production was accurate. But that was May. The Americans have produced another 140,000 in just 6 months. They're accelerating, not slowing. Total military truck production in 1944, approximately 500,000. Total tank and armored vehicle production, approximately 32,000. Müller adds the numbers. In 1 year, the Americans have produced more military vehicles than Germany has produced in the entire war, and the Americans are also fighting Japan, building a strategic bomber force, constructing a navy, supplying allies. This is not their full capacity. This is what they can do while fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously. He writes a final report. It is only 3 pages. The conclusion is blunt. We are not fighting the American army. We are fighting American industrial civilization. Every battle we win kills soldiers they replace within weeks using vehicles they build faster than we can destroy them. We can win every tactical engagement and still lose strategically because they simply produce more of everything than we can consume through combat. The war is lost, not because of any failure of German arms, but because we never understood what we were fighting. We thought we were fighting an army. We should have been fighting an economy. And we cannot destroy their economy because it is on another continent, protected by oceans, fed by resources from across the world. The report circulates at high levels. Nobody challenges the mathematics. Several officers note that such defeatist analysis is inappropriate and potentially dangerous, but nobody refutes the numbers. December 1944, the Ardennes, Germany's last major offensive in the West, the Battle of the Bulge. German forces attack with 28 divisions, achieve tactical surprise, push deep into American lines. For a few days, it seems like the old Wehrmacht, mobile, aggressive, tactically brilliant. Then, the weather clears. Allied air power strikes every moving German vehicle. And more critically, American logistics responds. Surrounded at Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division is resupplied by air. 350 aircraft drop supplies, despite weather and anti-aircraft fire. The supplies include ammunition, medical supplies, food, and even Jeep parts. Jeep parts dropped by parachute to a surrounded unit. This is the level of logistical support American forces consider normal. Meanwhile, German spearheads run out of fuel. The offensive was planned assuming captured American fuel dumps would sustain the advance, but American forces destroy their own supply dumps during the retreat. German tanks, including the massive King Tigers, sit immobile with empty fuel tanks. Crews abandon them. Within 2 weeks, American forces counterattack. They bring overwhelming numbers of vehicles, troops, supplies. The German offensive collapses, not because of tactical defeat, but because of logistical exhaustion. The Americans could sustain operations, the Germans could not. A German staff officer, captured during the battle, is interrogated about the offensive's failure. His response is recorded. "We planned to reach the Meuse River, to split the Allied armies, to capture Antwerp. We had the tactical skill to do it. What we did not have was fuel for more than 4 days of combat, ammunition for more than 1 week, and replacement vehicles when ours broke down. The Americans had everything: fuel, ammunition, spare parts, more vehicles than they needed. We were trying to win with skill and courage. They were winning with supply trucks and logistics. It is impossible." January 1945. The Rhine. American forces approach Germany's last natural barrier. The Germans have destroyed every bridge, prepared every defensive position, concentrated their remaining mobile reserves. This should be where German engineering and defensive doctrine shine. Rivers are difficult obstacles. Armies need bridges, ferries, pontoons, supply lines become vulnerable. Attackers lose momentum. But American engineers bring bridging, equipment in quantities that make river crossings routine. Bailey bridges arrive by the hundreds, pontoon sections by the thousands. Within days of reaching the Rhine, American engineers have multiple crossing sites operational. A German observer on the east bank watches American convoys cross a newly built pontoon bridge. He counts vehicles. After 3 hours, he stops counting. He has recorded 2,000 vehicles, and the stream shows no sign of ending. His report to headquarters is simple. "They are crossing an entire army. We destroyed the bridges, they built new ones. We shell the crossing sites. They repair the damage within hours. We cannot stop this. There are too many of them, and they have too much of everything." March 1945. American forces are deep into Germany. The war's outcome is no longer in doubt, but German technical intelligence is still trying to understand what happened. How did the Americans do this? A team of officers and engineers is assembled to write a comprehensive analysis. They have access to captured American vehicles, documents, even interviews with cooperative prisoners. Their report, completed in April 1945, just before Germany's surrender, runs to 238 pages. It will be captured by American intelligence and translated. Decades later, it will be declassified. The report's executive summary is remarkable for its clarity and honesty. The American military vehicle production represents the most significant industrial achievement of the war. The scale is without precedent in military history. Total production from 1941 through February 1945, approximately 2.6 million military vehicles of all types. This includes approximately 650,000 jeeps, approximately 1.5 million trucks, approximately 88,000 tanks and armored vehicles, and hundreds of thousands of specialized vehicles. For comparison, German production over the same period, approximately 350,000 vehicles total. Soviet production, approximately 500,000. British production, approximately 400,000. The Americans alone have produced more military vehicles than all other combatants combined. The American achievement is not primarily technical. Their vehicles are not superior in design to German equipment. In many cases, they are inferior in performance, protection, and reliability. The achievement is organizational and industrial. The Americans have created a manufacturing system based on several key principles. 1. Standardization of components across different vehicle types. A Jeep and a 2.5-ton truck share many common parts, simplifying supply and maintenance. 2. Mass production techniques applied ruthlessly to military equipment. They sacrifice perfection for speed and accept higher individual vehicle failure rates in exchange for overwhelming numerical superiority. 3. An integrated logistics system where vehicle production, fuel production, spare parts manufacturing, and maintenance capacity all scale together. They do not simply build vehicles. They build complete support systems. 4. Strategic use of industrial capacity. They converted existing civilian automotive factories rather than building new military-specific facilities. This allowed rapid scaling at the beginning of the war. The result is a military that operates on principles fundamentally different from European armies. They assume material abundance and plan accordingly. They expect vehicle losses and build replacement capacity into their system. They maintain momentum through logistics rather than through tactical superiority. Against this system, traditional military doctrine is insufficient. We can win battles and still lose campaigns because they replace losses faster than we can inflict them. The report includes a section titled Lessons for Future Conflicts. It is written by officers who know Germany has lost, but who think about what comes next. Any future conflict against a major industrial power must account for productive capacity as a primary factor in planning. Military skill and technological superiority can be overwhelmed by industrial scale. Wars between industrial nations are wars of economies as much as wars of armies. The American model of warfare, based on material abundance and logistical superiority, may represent the future of military operations. The side that can produce more, transport more, and supply more will have decisive advantages, regardless of tactical situations. Germany entered this war with superior tactics, superior initial equipment, and highly trained soldiers. We are losing to an enemy whose primary advantage is the ability to build faster than we can destroy. April 1945. The war in Europe has days remaining. In a basement in Stuttgart, Dr. Friedrich Müller burns his papers. He is not destroying evidence of war crimes. He is burning technical reports, calculations, analyses of American vehicle production. The papers will survive anyway. American forces will capture most German technical intelligence archives, but Müller wants no record of what he wrote, because he was right, and being right about Germany's defeat has made him enemies. Before burning the last document, he reads it one more time. It is his original report from January 1944, the analysis of a single captured Jeep. The conclusion still stands. This vehicle should not exist, not because it is well designed, but because its existence in numbers exceeding 500,000 represents an industrial capability we cannot match. The Americans have built more of these simple utility vehicles than we have built of all vehicle types combined. This single fact may determine the war's outcome. Müller sets the paper on fire and watches it burn. He has spent the war measuring, calculating, reporting. He has been an engineer doing his job, trying to give his superiors accurate information. Whether they listened or not was beyond his control. May 8th, 1945. Germany surrenders. In the aftermath, Allied intelligence teams fan out across Germany looking for technical intelligence. They find Müller's facility in Stuttgart. Most documents are destroyed, but some survive. American engineers read them with interest. A report is prepared for the War Department. German intelligence accurately assessed American vehicle production capacity by early 1944. They understood the scale of our logistics system and correctly predicted it would be decisive. Their failure was not in intelligence, but in their inability to respond. They lacked the industrial base to compete in mass production and the raw materials to sustain increased output. They chose to focus on quality over quantity, believing superior equipment could compensate for numerical inferiority. In the event it could not, the American report includes a note. It is worth observing that German engineers respected American production capabilities even when German military leadership did not. Technical experts saw clearly what was coming. Political and military leaders either did not receive this information, did not believe it, or could not act on it. Intelligence without action is merely interesting information. June 1945. Europe. The war is over. American forces occupy Germany. Supply convoys still roll, still moving troops, equipment, supplies. A British liaison officer, working with American logistics, writes in his diary, "I have spent a month observing American supply operations in occupied Germany. The scale beggars belief. They are supplying more than 3 million men in the European theater. Daily requirements exceed 40,000 tons. This includes food, fuel, ammunition, spare parts, mail, medical supplies, everything an army needs. The Americans deliver this tonnage every day without fail. The system works so smoothly that no one even comments on it anymore. It is simply expected that supplies will be there. I asked an American logistics colonel how they do it. He looked at me as if the question was strange. "We have trucks," he said. "We have lots of trucks. That is the entire secret. We built enough vehicles that we can move anything, anywhere. Every other problem becomes easier when you can transport 40,000 tons per day." The British officer's diary continues. He's right, of course. The Americans won this war with trucks and jeeps and supply discipline. They fought bravely, no question, but their real advantage was never courage. It was logistics. They could put more men, more equipment, more supplies at the point of decision than anyone else, and they could sustain that effort indefinitely. I think back to 1940, 1941, when Britain stood alone. We won because we had will and because we held on long enough for allies to arrive. But watching American logistics now, I understand we could never have defeated Germany alone. We did not have the industrial capacity. We did not have the resources. We barely had enough to survive. The Americans did not just help us win. They brought an entirely different kind of war, one based on overwhelming material superiority. They industrialized warfare in a way we never imagined. July 1945, Washington, D.C. The War Production Board compiles final statistics on wartime manufacturing. The numbers are classified, but will eventually be released. Total military vehicles produced by the United States from 1941 through 1945, 2,700,000 units. This includes 653,000 jeeps, 1,653,000 trucks of all types, 88,000 tanks, and approximately 300,000 other specialized vehicles. For comparison, total U.S. military vehicle inventory in 1940, approximately 100,000 vehicles of all types, many obsolete. In 5 years, American industry produced 27 times as many vehicles as the entire pre-war fleet. The industrial mobilization represented the largest, fastest expansion of manufacturing capacity in human history. But these are just numbers. The meaning behind them is what matters. Every one of those 2.7 million vehicles represented workers, factories, raw materials, supply chains, logistics, infrastructure. Behind each Jeep were mining companies, extracting iron ore, steel mills, forging components, rubber plantations producing tires, oil refineries making gasoline, thousands of workers assembling parts, railroads moving materials, ports loading ships, convoys crossing oceans. The Jeep was not just a vehicle. It was the visible output of an entire industrial civilization geared for war. August 1945. Tokyo. Japan surrenders. The war is over. American occupation forces move into Japan with the same logistical efficiency they demonstrated in Europe. Japanese officers who have studied German reports on American capabilities still express shock at seeing it firsthand. One Japanese colonel, assigned to work with American occupation logistics, writes in his diary, "The Americans arrived with everything, not just combat troops, but vehicles, supplies, infrastructure equipment, even prefabricated buildings. Within a week of the surrender, they had established complete supply networks in Tokyo, Yokohama, Osaka. Their efficiency is frightening. We fought them for 4 years and never understood what we were facing. We thought we were fighting soldiers. We were fighting an industrial system that produces war material faster than combat can consume it. There was never any possibility of victory against such an enemy." September 1945, Detroit. The automotive factories that built military vehicles begin converting back to civilian production. The same assembly lines that built Jeeps will now build civilian cars. The same workers who welded military trucks will build family sedans. The transition is remarkably smooth because the fundamental manufacturing processes are identical. Within a year, American automotive factories will be producing 4 million civilian vehicles annually, the same level as before the war. but they will do it with improved techniques, better efficiency, greater scale. The lessons of wartime mass production will transform post-war industry. October 1945, a symposium in Washington. Military officials, industry leaders, academics gather to discuss lessons learned from the war. One session focuses on logistics and production. A speaker from the War Production Board presents data on vehicle manufacturing. The audience, familiar with the basics, still reacts with surprise at the totals. 2.7 million vehicles, 650,000 Jeeps. The Jeep alone, the speaker notes, represents more units than Germany's entire vehicle production across all types during the war. One vehicle model, built by two companies, in less than 5 years. That is American industrial power. The speaker continues, but the number is meaningless without context. We did not just build 650,000 Jeeps. We built them with such consistency that any part from any Jeep fit any other Jeep. We built them fast enough that battlefield losses never reduced availability. We built them cheaply enough that we could give them to allies by the thousands. We integrated them into a logistics system where every division, every corps, every army had exactly the transportation it needed. The Jeep worked because everything around it worked. That is the real achievement. A general in the audience asks a question. Could we do it again? If another war came, could we mobilize this quickly? The speaker pauses. We could mobilize faster. The infrastructure exists. The knowledge exists. The techniques exist. We learned how to convert civilian industry to military production in months instead of years. We learned how to scale production rapidly. We learned how to manage supply chains of incredible complexity. All that knowledge remains. In a future conflict, American industrial mobilization would be even more impressive than what we accomplished in this war. November 1945, Germany. The U.S. Army's Historical Division begins interviewing captured German officers for a project that will become the German Report Series. One interview is with a former Wehrmacht logistics officer, Oberst Heinrich Dietrich. He commanded supply operations for an entire army group. The interviewer asks about his assessment of American logistics. Dietrich's response is recorded. I spent 30 years as a logistics officer. I believed I understood military supply. The Americans taught me I understood nothing. They operated on principles I had never encountered. They assumed abundance. They planned for waste. They built redundancy into every system. If they needed 100 trucks, they brought 150. If they needed 1,000 tons of supplies, they delivered 1,500. They oversupplied everything as a matter of policy. At first I thought this was inefficiency, that they were wasteful because they were inexperienced. Then I realized it was deliberate. They knew they would lose vehicles to breakdown and combat. They knew supplies would be damaged or lost. They planned for these losses and simply brought more than they needed. The result was that they never ran short. German logistics operated on efficiency. We calculated exactly what was needed and tried to deliver precisely that amount. It worked in theory, but failed in practice. Because war is unpredictable, we had no margin for error. American logistics had enormous margins for error. They could lose 30% of a convoy and still deliver enough supplies to sustain operations. We lost 10% and faced shortages. They built a system that assumed waste and losses. We built a system that assumed perfection. Theirs worked. Ours did not. The interviewer asks about the Jeep specifically. Dietrich laughs, not with humor, but with recognition. The Jeep. Yes, we studied captured Jeeps. We understood they were not technically impressive, but there were so many. Every American unit had dozens. They used them for everything. Command vehicles, reconnaissance, supply transport, ambulances, everything. We calculated that American forces in Europe had approximately 200,000 Jeeps at peak strength. That is more utility vehicles of one type than our entire army had of all types. They could move officers, supplies, information faster than we could react. Their tempo of operations was partly because their commanders could move quickly between units, could see situations firsthand, could make decisions based on direct observation rather than reports. The Jeep enabled that. Mobility became decision-making speed. We could not match it. December 1945. 1 year since Dr. Friedrich Müller first examined a captured Jeep and predicted what it meant. Müller survived the war, remained in Stuttgart, now works for the American occupation authorities as a technical advisor. He helps American engineers understand German manufacturing techniques. It is ironic work. The Germans studying American mass production, the Americans studying German precision engineering, each side learning from the other. An American officer asks Müller when he first understood Germany would lose the war. Müller does not hesitate. December 1943. I examined a Jeep. I calculated how many they had built. I realized they were producing more vehicles in 1 month than we produced in 1 year. The war was lost then. We did not know it yet, but it was over. Everything after that was just playing out the inevitable conclusion. We fought well. Our soldiers were brave. Our tactics were often superior, but we were fighting arithmetic. They had more of everything. And when you have more of everything, you can absorb losses, maintain momentum, grind down any enemy, regardless of tactical skill. We lost because they outbuilt us. It is that simple. January 1946. The war has been over for months. Across Europe, American vehicles are everywhere. Jeeps are particularly common. Some have been transferred to Allied armies. Some are used by occupation forces. Some have simply been abandoned or sold as surplus. A French mechanic in Normandy specializes in repairing Jeeps for civilian use. He has worked on dozens. He is interviewed by a local newspaper. American vehicles are simple, he says, but that is their genius. Nothing is complicated. Everything is accessible. Parts are standardized. I can fix any Jeep using parts from any other Jeep. I have repaired them using parts from 3 different vehicles. Everything fits. The Americans designed for repairability, not for performance. And because they are repairable, they last. German vehicles I have worked on are better engineered, more sophisticated, more powerful, more precisely built. But they are difficult to repair. Special tools are needed. Parts must be ordered from specific factories. Often, parts are no longer available. The German vehicles were built for excellence. The American vehicles were built for use. In the end, the vehicle you can keep running is better than the vehicle that performs perfectly when it works, but cannot be repaired when it breaks. February 1946. A symposium at MIT. Engineers and academics discuss lessons from the war. One presentation focuses on manufacturing techniques. The speaker describes American automotive mass production and how it was applied to military vehicles. He uses the Jeep as a case study. The Jeep represents a manufacturing philosophy, he explains, that prioritizes quantity, speed, and maintainability over individual unit performance. This is not because American engineers could not design better vehicles. They chose not to. They chose adequate performance in overwhelming numbers, over optimal performance in limited quantities. This choice shaped the war's outcome as much as any strategic decision or tactical innovation. The Allies could sustain operations regardless of losses because replacement vehicles arrived faster than combat could destroy them. The Axis could not. Their vehicles were often superior individually, but they could not replace losses, could not maintain repair pipelines, could not keep pace with the tempo of American logistics. The side with adequate equipment in unlimited quantity defeated the side with superior equipment in limited quantity. This lesson will reshape military thinking for generations. The presentation concludes with a question. What if Germany had built 200,000 adequate trucks instead of 50,000 excellent trucks? What if they had chosen quantity over quality? The speaker pauses. Then the war might have turned out very differently, but they could not make that choice. They lacked the industrial base for mass production. They lacked the resources for sustained output. They lacked the cultural acceptance of adequate rather than excellent. The Germans built vehicles the way they built everything, to the highest standard possible. The Americans built vehicles the way they built everything, fast, simple, good enough, and in enormous numbers. Different philosophies, different outcomes. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.